The Starlight Theater rose like an aging cathedral in downtown Chicago, its marble facade bathed in the golden glow of sunset, while black luxury cars lined the circular drive. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast prisms across the crowd of Chicago's elite, politicians with practiced smiles, businessmen with careful handshakes, and the unmistakable presence of those whose power operated in shadows. A small figure in a pale blue dress sat alone in the corner of the grand foyer, her blonde curls cascading over hunched shoulders as her fingers twisted a small music box repetitively. No one approached the child, their gazes sliding past her like water over glass, as though her existence was a footnote in the grand narrative of wealth and influence. Penelope Whitfield adjusted the starched collar of her temporary server's uniform, balancing a tray of champagne flutes while scanning the crowd for empty glasses. The catering agency had been clear: serve quietly, observe everything, speak only when addressed directly by guests at Mr. Salvati's charity gala. The whispers followed Giuseppe Salvati as he moved through the crowd, Chicago's most feared man, head of the Salvati crime family, whose legitimate businesses were merely the veneer over an empire built on blood. His presence commanded deference, his handshake sealed fates, his smile never quite reaching the coldness in his eyes. Penelope noticed the pattern immediately, how conversations hushed when the little girl rocked slightly, how women's smiles tightened when she hummed a quiet melody, how men shifted away when her hands flapped momentarily. The child existed in her solitary bubble, surrounded by hundreds yet utterly alone. Behind the polished exterior, Penelope recognized the telltale signs from her years working with special needs children before finances forced her career change. The repetitive movements, the sensory overload in her wide eyes, the comfort sought in the predictable turning of the music box, all hallmarks of autism that the glittering crowd seemed determined to ignore. When the champagne flute slipped from her tray, shattering against the marble with a crystalline explosion of sound, Penelope's apologies died on her lips as she noticed the child's reaction. Not fear or startlement, but fascination. Pale blue eyes fixated on the pattern of liquid spreading across white stone. The crowd parted like a dark sea as Giuseppe Salvati approached, his custom Italian shoes stopping inches from the spreading champagne, his shadow falling over Penelope as she knelt gathering glass fragments. "You're fired," he said simply, the words carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Your daughter finds beauty in patterns," Penelope replied, nodding toward the child who now watched the interaction with unusual intensity. "She's not disturbed by the noise. She's fascinated by how the light catches in the liquid spreading across marble grain." Salvati's gaze snapped between the server and his daughter, surprise briefly fracturing his controlled expression, before suspicion narrowed his eyes. "You know nothing about my child," he stated coldly, though his voice held a question beneath the dismissal. A security guard approached with purposeful strides, but Penelope rose smoothly, moving past Salvati toward his daughter with calm, deliberate movements. The crowd collectively held its breath at this breach of invisible boundaries, the temporary server approaching the untouchable crime lord's isolated child. Penelope knelt before the little girl, not blocking her view of the champagne pattern, but entering her peripheral vision respectfully. "The marble and liquid make beautiful music together, don't they?" she asked softly, making no attempt to touch or demand eye contact. The child's fingers stilled on the music box as she gave a nearly imperceptible nod, her gaze still fixed on the floor pattern. Around them, the fundraiser continued in muted tones, but a small sphere of absolute silence had formed around their interaction. Penelope hummed a gentle melody that matched the rhythm of the child's rocking, her hands mirroring the girl's movements in subtle harmony. "Sometimes we need to dance with what we see," she whispered, "even if others don't understand the music." Then Penelope stood and offered her hand, palm up, without demand or expectation. A bridge extended across worlds. "Would you like to dance with me?" she asked simply, as the orchestra in the main hall began a new waltz. The entire room seemed suspended in disbelief as the little girl, who had never willingly touched a stranger, slowly placed her small hand in Penelope's, rising from her isolated corner. Something luminous and fragile passed between them, a connection forged in a language beyond words. The Salvati estate dominated the North Shore skyline, a sprawling stone fortress framed by ancient oak trees, whose shadows stretched like protective sentinels across manicured lawns. Penelope stood at the massive iron gates the following morning, clutching the formal invitation that had arrived at her apartment door at dawn, an offer of employment she couldn't afford to refuse. Head housekeeper Mrs. Bianchi led her through corridors of cold opulence, Italian marble floors, Renaissance paintings flanked by actual Medici artifacts, and security cameras disguised as classical sculptures. "Mr. Salvati rarely brings outsiders in," she whispered, her eyes communicating volumes about the unusual nature of this arrangement. The West Wing remained eerily silent, a stark contrast to the controlled bustle of staff attending to the main house. Here the curtains remained drawn, dust gathering on ornate picture frames holding photographs turned face down, as though memory itself had been deliberately hidden away. Penelope's quarters adjoined a cheerful yellow bedroom filled with untouched toys, educational materials arranged with mathematical precision, and walls covered in detailed drawings of ballet dancers frozen mid-pirouette. Despite the obvious care taken in the room's design, it felt sterile, untouched by the joyful chaos of actual childhood. "Cecilia doesn't speak, Mrs. Bianchi explained, arranging fresh flowers in a crystal vase. Not since the accident that took her mother 3 years ago, the same night Mr. Salvati forbade dancing in this house forever." Security Chief Farron conducted Penelope's mandatory briefing with military precision, his scarred face betraying nothing as he outlined protocols for emergencies, restricted areas, and the essential rule. Mr. Salvati's business associates never interact with his daughter. Ensure she remains in the West Wing during meetings. The child appeared in the doorway like a ghost, barefoot in a simple white dress, blonde curls framing a face that observed everything yet revealed nothing. She made no acknowledgement of Penelope's presence, instead crossing to the window where sunlight created patterns across the Persian rug. "Hello, Cecilia," Penelope said warmly, making no move to approach or touch. "I'm here to be your friend, not to change who you are or how you see the world, just to walk beside you for a while." From the shadows of the hallway, Giuseppe Salvati watched the interaction with guarded eyes, his knuckles white against the doorframe. The new tutor spoke to his daughter without condescension or pity, the first person since his wife who addressed Cecilia as a complete human, rather than a collection of diagnoses. The estate felt like a museum dedicated to grief, where emotions had been catalogued, labeled, and locked away from public view. Photographs absent from walls left lighter rectangles like headstones marking where memories once lived, their absence a presence unto itself. Cecilia's movements through her daily routine revealed a child trapped in precise patterns, breakfast arranged in specific color order, clothing selected by texture rather than appearance, and a profound avoidance of the East Wing music room. Her world had been carefully constructed to avoid anything that might trigger memories. When Penelope found the hidden ballet slippers beneath floorboards in Cecilia's closet, their satin worn thin from secret use, she understood the magnitude of her discovery. These weren't just shoes, but artifacts of rebellion, a child's desperate attempt to maintain connection with her lost mother. The security cameras tracked Penelope's every movement through the mansion, a constant reminder that in this household, trust was theoretical at best. Even the gardens were monitored, guards patrolling the perimeter with weapons visible enough to discourage any thought of escape. At dinner, Salvati observed his daughter from the head of the massive table, his questions about her day, directed to Penelope rather than Cecilia herself. "She doesn't understand enough to answer," he explained, though the flash in Cecilia's eyes suggested a comprehension far deeper than he acknowledged. As darkness settled over the estate, Penelope discovered Cecilia in her room, moving in perfect silence to music only she could hear. Her movements were precise, disciplined, not the random motions of stimming, but the deliberate forms of classical ballet executed with startling precision. "Your secret is safe with me," Penelope whispered from the doorway, causing the child to freeze mid-pirouette, fear replacing the rare joy that had animated her features. "Sometimes our hearts need to dance even when the world tells us to be still." The abandoned garden house stood partially hidden by weeping willows at the estate's edge, its windows clouded with dust and memories, floorboards creaking beneath their cautious steps. Penelope swept away cobwebs from an antique gramophone while Cecilia explored the space with careful measuring steps. "This was your mother's private studio," Penelope observed, noting the mirrors along one wall now draped in yellowed sheets, the ballet bar bolted to the wall collecting dust like fallen snow. The room held the suspended breath of interrupted joy, as though waiting for dancers to return and complete movements abandoned mid-step. When Penelope uncovered the gramophone and wound its mechanism, the first strains of Tchaikovsky filled the space, notes floating like ghosts through stagnant air. Cecilia froze, her entire body vibrating with recognition, fingers fluttering at her sides like captured butterflies seeking escape. The transformation began slowly, Cecilia's rigid posture softening, her perpetual silence giving way to a barely audible hum that matched the melody. Her small feet shifted automatically into first position, muscle memory awakening from a 3-year slumber. "Your mother lives in your movements," Penelope said softly, maintaining careful distance as Cecilia began to sway. "When you dance, you speak with her voice, your body remembering what your words cannot express." With each passing day, they established new patterns. Mornings devoted to traditional education, adapted to Cecilia's unique learning style. Afternoons spent in the secret studio where dance became their shared language. The girl who wouldn't make eye contact now communicated volumes through arabesques and pliés. Giuseppe Salvati's business kept him away for extended periods, his empire demanding constant attention, though security cameras throughout the estate ensured his virtual presence was inescapable. During his absences, the household breathed more freely, staff moving with less rigid precision. Penelope discovered the photo albums in the garden house attic, memories preserved in fading color of a smiling woman with Cecilia's blonde curls, captured mid-leap across international stages. Catherine Salvati, prima ballerina, newspaper clippings proclaimed, until marriage to Chicago's most dangerous man had removed her from the spotlight. "Your father doesn't hate dance," Penelope realized, piecing together the timeline from yellowing programs and photographs. "He associates it with the accident. Your mother was returning from teaching your lesson when her car was targeted by rival families. The forbidden became sacred, stolen moments of freedom within gilded confinement, as Cecilia's movements grew more confident, her silent communication more nuanced. For the first time, Penelope glimpsed the child beneath the diagnosis, a mind expressing complex emotions through the poetry of movement. Physical changes manifested gradually, Cecilia's posture straightening, her gaze occasionally meeting others, small nods replacing complete withdrawal. The staff noticed, exchanging glances when the child accepted a strawberry directly from the cook's hand without her customary hesitation. Mrs. Bianchi caught them returning from the garden house, Cecilia's cheeks flushed with exertion, Penelope carrying worn ballet slippers. Instead of reporting them, the housekeeper silently produced a key ring from her pocket, removing the garden studio key and pressing it into Penelope's palm with a conspiratorial smile. "Mr. Salvati returns tomorrow," she warned, her loyalty to her employer warring visibly with her love for the child who showed the first signs of emerging from grief's cocoon. "Be careful. There are eyes and ears beyond the cameras." That night, Cecilia slept with the ballet slippers beneath her pillow, one small hand resting protectively over their hiding place. For the first time since Penelope's arrival, the child's face relaxed completely in sleep. The constant vigilance temporarily surrendered to dreams of movement and music. The atmosphere changed with Giuseppe's return, tension seeping through the estate like rising floodwater as security doubled and staff spoke in hushed tones. His world of calculated violence remained carefully separated from Cecilia's protected sphere, though the boundaries between them grew increasingly permeable. Giuseppe found Penelope in the library well past midnight, researching therapeutic approaches for children with autism, her dedication surprising him into momentary candor. "Most people see her limitations first," he admitted, pouring amber liquid into crystal glasses, but Catherine always insisted on seeing her possibilities. The newspaper clippings from 3 years ago told the story that no one in the household dared speak aloud. Headlines announcing, "Prima ballerina Catherine Williams dies in targeted hit," alongside theories of gang retaliation. Penelope pieced together the fragments of truth while Cecilia slept, understanding at last the weight of silence crushing this household. Catherine's death had not been random but calculated, a strike against Giuseppe's most vulnerable point by the rival Bronzetti family during negotiations for territory in the city's west side. The attack had been meant for both mother and daughter returning from ballet class, but a last-minute change had placed Cecilia with a babysitter. Giuseppe's vengeance had been swift and merciless, leaving the Bronzetti operation decimated across 3 states. Yet victory had turned to ash when he returned to find his daughter retreated into absolute silence. The doctors delivered their diagnosis with clinical precision. Trauma had accelerated her autism symptoms beyond prior management. "I buried my wife and my daughter's voice on the same day," Giuseppe confessed during a rare, vulnerable moment, scotch loosening the rigid control he maintained over memory. Cecilia watched from the window as they lowered her mother's casket. The last time she danced was at the funeral. The hidden room behind Giuseppe's study contained evidence of his desperate search for answers, specialist consultations from across the globe, experimental treatment proposals, and therapies abandoned when they promised normalcy rather than understanding. His love manifested as fierce protection warped by grief into isolation. Mrs. Bianchi revealed that Catherine had been planning to leave the criminal lifestyle behind, convinced that Cecilia needed stability away from danger. The accident happened 3 days before their scheduled departure to Europe. Tickets were purchased, arrangements made for a new life teaching ballet. Security Chief Farron's loyalty to Giuseppe stemmed from deeper bonds than employment. He had been driving the decoy car intended to draw attention from Catherine's vehicle, his scarred face the result of the explosion he survived while she did not. His vigilance around Cecilia carried the weight of atonement. The East Wing music room remained locked, preserved exactly as it had been the day of Catherine's death. Sheet music still open on the piano, a child-sized tutu draped over a miniature bari, 2 water glasses on the side table with lipstick on one rim. Giuseppe kept the only key on his person always. He can't bear to dismantle her presence, yet can't bear to confront it either, Mrs. Bianchi explained, polishing silver that already gleamed. So the room remains frozen in time, like his grief, neither acknowledged nor resolved. Cecilia's medical records revealed the complexity of her condition, her autism complicated by selective mutism triggered by trauma, her brilliant mind trapped behind walls of anxiety and sensory processing challenges. Previous therapists had attempted forcing speech with mounting frustration, rather than finding alternative communication pathways. Giuseppe's criminal empire operated with clockwork precision despite his distraction, lieutenants managing day-to-day operations while he approved major decisions from his study, opponents still trembling at his reputation, despite his withdrawal from public operations. Power maintained through calculated fear required minimal presence. The rival families interpreted Giuseppe's focus on his daughter as weakness, whispers spreading through Chicago's underworld about the fearsome Salvati going soft in his grief. Surveillance photos of his estate appeared in police files and competitor dossiers alike. Vulnerability assessed for potential exploitation. For 3 years, Cecilia had lived as though underwater, sounds muffled, connections distorted, the world experienced through protective filters that kept pain at bay but imprisoned joy equally. Her drawings revealed this perspective, beautiful renderings of daily life viewed through rippling glass. "I don't need her fixed," Giuseppe admitted during a rare moment watching Cecilia arrange colored blocks in patterns only she understood. "I just need to know she's still in there somewhere, that I didn't lose everything that night." The turning point came unexpectedly during dinner, when Penelope subtly adjusted the silverware Cecilia had been realigning repeatedly, completing the pattern rather than disrupting it. The child looked up in momentary surprise, the briefest flash of recognition crossing her face before she returned to her meal. That night, Penelope found Giuseppe in Catherine's preserved music room, scotch untouched, as he stared at the piano where his wife had once played lullabies for their daughter. Catherine always said Cecilia danced before she walked. That music spoke to her in ways words never could, he whispered to the ghosts surrounding him. Dawn filtered through gauzy curtains as Penelope discovered Cecilia already awake, methodically arranging her collection of music boxes by tone rather than appearance. Without breaking the child's concentration, Penelope hummed along with each tiny melody, creating harmonies that brought Cecilia's movements to a momentary pause. "Today we try something new," Penelope suggested, placing colored scarves on the floor in a rainbow pattern. "Sometimes our bodies speak more clearly than our voices. Show me how blue feels compared to red." The breakthrough occurred unexpectedly when Cecilia selected the blue scarf, wrapping it around her wrists as she performed a series of flowing movements that perfectly captured melancholy. Her face remained neutral, but her body articulated complex emotions her voice had abandoned years before. Each color elicited different movements, red producing sharp, angular motions, yellow creating buoyant, floating sequences, purple inspiring slow, thoughtful rotations. Through dance, Cecilia revealed a sophisticated emotional vocabulary that had been imprisoned within her silent exterior. When Giuseppe observed the session from the doorway, his presence usually causing Cecilia to retreat into rigid patterns, she instead offered him the green scarf with extended hands. The gesture, the first voluntary interaction she had initiated with her father in years, left him momentarily speechless. "Green was Catherine's favorite," he murmured, accepting the scarf with reverent hands while Cecilia resumed her dance, now incorporating movements that mimicked elements of her father's characteristic gestures, strength tempered by unexpected gentleness. Progress manifested in small rebellions against established patterns, Cecilia requesting strawberry jam instead of grape through pointing, selecting outfits independently, and creating increasingly complex dance sequences that incorporated narrative elements from picture books Penelope read aloud. The garden studio became their sanctuary, its restoration a collaborative project as Farron secretly installed new mirrors. Mrs. Bianchi arranged for piano tuning during Giuseppe's business trips, and the gardener planted Catherine's favorite lilacs outside the windows to perfume their afternoon practices. "Your mother believed in muscle memory," Penelope explained, guiding Cecilia through ballet positions with gentle adjustments rather than forced manipulation. "Your body remembers joy it experienced before words became difficult. We're just helping it remember." The music box that never left Cecilia's possession contained more than melody. When accidentally dropped, its broken bottom revealed a hidden compartment, holding a folded note in Catherine's handwriting. "For my eternal dancing star, remember that even when words fail, your body speaks truth." Giuseppe found them practicing arabesques in the garden studio, his arrival unannounced after an early return from business in New York. Instead of anger at the forbidden activity, his face registered shock at his daughter's transformation, her movements fluid and purposeful, joy illuminating her features for the first time in 3 years. "She looks like Catherine," he whispered, remaining in the doorway as though afraid his presence would shatter the miracle before him. Cecilia continued dancing, acknowledging her father with a deliberate pirouette in his direction, communication more profound than words could achieve. That evening, Giuseppe ordered the East Wing music room unlocked, dust covers removed from furniture, and fresh flowers placed in Catherine's favorite vases. "Some ghosts need to be faced," he explained to a startled Mrs. Bianchi, his voice heavy with resolution rather than confidence. Cecilia entered the preserved room with cautious steps, her fingers trailing across the piano keys without pressing them, body absorbing the space where her last memories with her mother had formed. Rather than triggering withdrawal, the room seemed to ground her, connecting past joy to present possibility. The household staff watched in quiet amazement as small changes rippled through established routines. Giuseppe taking meals with Cecilia rather than in his study, security protocols relaxed to allow garden access without escorts, and most surprisingly, the delivery of a new piano to the previously silent West Wing. When Penelope began teaching Cecilia a simplified version of Catherine's favorite Tchaikovsky piece, transforming musical notes into a visual system of colored dots Cecilia could follow, Giuseppe watched from the hallway with an expression caught between grief and gratitude, the past simultaneously honored and transcended. The invitation arrived on heavy cream stationery, the Chicago Children's Ballet Foundation annual fundraiser, requesting the honor of the Salvati family's attendance and support. Giuseppe's immediate refusal softened only when he noticed Cecilia's intense focus on the embossed ballet slippers decorating the envelope's seal. It would be the first public appearance with Cecilia since the funeral, Security Chief Farron objected during planning meetings, spreading blueprints of the Starlight Theater across Giuseppe's desk. "Every rival family will be watching for vulnerability, analyzing her condition, your attachment, potential weaknesses." The city's criminal hierarchy maintained uneasy peace through tradition and spectacle. Public charity events where families demonstrated power through generosity, while conducting business beneath the veneer of philanthropy. Giuseppe's 3-year absence from such gatherings had created dangerous uncertainty about his continued authority. "Cecilia needs to see ballet performed professionally," Penelope advocated, standing her ground despite the tension crackling through Giuseppe's study. Children with autism often learn through observation more effectively than instruction. Seeing dancers could unlock new pathways of expression. The weeks before the fundraiser transformed routine into preparation. Penelope guiding Cecilia through potential scenarios using dolls and picture cards to reduce anxiety, security teams conducting advanced sweeps of the venue, and Giuseppe negotiating complex territorial arrangements to ensure neutral ground for all attending families. "We'll attend for exactly 45 minutes, Giuseppe decided, reviewing security protocols for the 7th time, while watching Cecilia practice curtsies in her new blue dress. "The first sign of distress from my daughter, and we leave immediately. Business consequences be damned." The Starlight Theater's rehabilitation from their first meeting to the night of the fundraiser struck Penelope as symbolically significant. Fresh paint covering aged walls, new lighting brightening former shadows, restoration rather than replacement honoring the structure's historic character while embracing renewal. Cecilia's reaction to the building exceeded all expectations. Her usual anxiety in new environments replaced by focused fascination with the theater's architecture, her movements becoming more deliberate as they approached the backstage areas where professional dancers warmed up before the charity performance. Mr. Salvati, greeted Dario Falcone, head of the Eastern Territories and Giuseppe's chief rival, his tone balancing between respect and assessment as his gaze lingered on Cecilia. We'd begun to think you'd retired permanently to domestic life. The business community has felt your absence keenly. The undercurrents of power flowed beneath polite conversation. Family heads evaluating Giuseppe's protective stance beside his daughter, lieutenants calculating revised threat assessments, wives whispering behind programs about the unusual presence of Penelope alongside the feared crime lord. During the pre-performance reception, Cecilia remained close to her father until spotting a professional dancer adjusting her pointe shoes in a quiet alcove. Without warning, she separated from the group, drawn to the familiar ritual like a moth to flame. Giuseppe's security team moved to intercept, but Penelope placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Watch," she whispered, as Cecilia approached the ballerina, who looked up with surprise that melted into understanding as she recognized the focused fascination in the child's eyes. With graceful intuition, the dancer extended her foot, demonstrating the ribbon-tying technique, while Cecilia observed with complete attention, her body subtly mirroring the movements. Around them, the crowded reception continued, but a small bubble of perfect communication had formed between artist and silent admirer. "She's communicating," Falcone observed, appearing beside Giuseppe with calculated casualness, his tone revealing genuine surprise. "The rumors about her condition appear to have been greatly exaggerated. Interesting that you've allowed such misconceptions to persist." The performance itself transported Cecilia completely. Her usual repetitive movements stilled as she absorbed every leap and turn on stage, her focus so complete that she seemed to breathe in rhythm with the dancers. Beside her, Giuseppe watched his daughter rather than the stage, witnessing her transformation through art. When the principal dancer executed a series of perfect fouettes during the finale, Cecilia's hands fluttered in silent applause, her expression illuminated with recognition of technical perfection. In that moment, surrounded by Chicago's most dangerous power brokers, she was simply a child experiencing pure joy. The abandoned theater in the Salvati Estate's East grounds had once hosted private performances during Prohibition, its ornate interior now veiled beneath decades of dust and forgotten grandeur. Giuseppe unlocked its heavy doors, with keys retrieved from the estate's vault, pushing them open to reveal tiered seating facing a small but professional stage. "Catherine discovered it when we first bought the property," Giuseppe explained as they explored the space, his voice echoing in the emptiness. "She had plans to restore it for children's performances before." His words trailed off, as his gaze caught on faded murals depicting scenes from classic ballets. Cecilia moved through the space with unusual confidence, her steps following paths her mother had once walked, her fingers trailing along velvet-upholstered seats as though reading their history through touch. In the theater's timeless atmosphere, she seemed to shed layers of hesitation like abandoned costumes. The restoration became a family project, Giuseppe redirecting construction crews from legitimate business sites, Penelope researching historical accuracy for interior details, and Cecilia offering unexpected input through drawings of exactly how certain elements should appear. Her architectural memory proved flawless, recalling details from visits during her early childhood. 6 weeks, Giuseppe informed the construction foreman, writing a check that silenced all questions about the accelerated timeline. "My daughter's birthday falls on June 18th. The theater will be completed by then, regardless of cost or required manpower." The work proceeded around the clock. Original chandeliers rewired, hand-carved moldings restored, stage flooring replaced with professional dance surfaces, and a state-of-the-art sound system hidden behind historically accurate facades. Throughout construction, Cecilia visited daily, her excitement visible in increasingly fluid movements. Farron established comprehensive security measures disguised within the renovation, panic rooms concealed behind decorative panels, bulletproof glass in all windows, and surveillance systems integrated into restored fixtures. His protection extended beyond physical threats to include Cecilia's emotional security within the space. When the principal dancer from the Chicago Children's Ballet accepted Giuseppe's extraordinary financial offer to provide private coaching for Cecilia, she arrived with professional curiosity that quickly transformed to genuine investment. "Your daughter has natural aptitude preserved despite interruption," she observed after their first session. The transformation extended beyond the physical space to Cecilia herself, her daily routines now structured around ballet practice, her formerly restrictive food preferences expanding to include nutrition supporting physical training, her sensory sensitivities addressed through specially designed dance attire. "We're creating a performance," Penelope announced during dinner one evening, presenting a modified version of Swan Lake's core narrative through picture cards that immediately captured Cecilia's attention. "A special showing for your birthday with just family present, focusing on storytelling through movement rather than technical perfection." Giuseppe's business associates noticed the change in him. Meetings rescheduled around Cecilia's practice sessions, territorial disputes settled efficiently rather than prolonged, and a new willingness to delegate tasks that previously required his personal attention. Power maintained through decisive action rather than constant presence. The invitation list remained deliberately limited. Mrs. Bianchi, Farron and his security team, the estate staff, and a carefully vetted professional pianist to accompany the performance. The exclusive nature transformed the event from potential public scrutiny to protected celebration within their created sanctuary. Rehearsals revealed Cecilia's extraordinary memory for choreography, complex sequences learned through observation without verbal instruction. Each movement performed with technical precision surprising in a child her age. The physical discipline of ballet provided structure her mind craved, while allowing creative expression. "She's telling her story," the ballet instructor explained to Giuseppe after witnessing a particularly emotional rehearsal. "The traditional choreography provides vocabulary, but the interpretation is uniquely hers. She's expressing 3 years of silence through movement." The costumes arrived in a collection of carefully labeled boxes, delicate confections of tulle and satin created by the ballet company's costume department based on Cecilia's detailed drawings. When she touched the white swan tutu for the first time, her fingers trembling with reverence, tears filled her eyes without falling. As the performance date approached, an unexpected development emerged. Cecilia's insistence that Giuseppe participate in the final scene, her communication through demonstration, rather than words, making clear her desire for her father to join her on stage for the story's resolution. The private theater glowed with subdued elegance on the evening of Cecilia's birthday, fresh flowers adorning the entryway, programs printed on heavy stock detailing Swan Lake, a family interpretation, with Cecilia's name as principal dancer. Invited guests arrived in formal attire, their respect for the occasion evident in their hushed voices and careful movements. Giuseppe greeted each guest personally, the feared crime lord temporarily set aside as he played the role of proud father, though Farron's team maintained vigilant presence throughout the theater. The atmosphere balanced celebration with the solemnity of witnessing something precious and previously concealed. Behind the velvet curtains, Penelope helped Cecilia prepare, arranging blonde curls into a perfect ballet bun adorned with tiny crystal pins that had once belonged to Catherine. The child's usual pre-performance anxiety manifested in repetitive hand movements that gradually calmed as they completed their established preparation ritual. "Your mother is watching tonight," Penelope whispered, adjusting the swan tiara one final time. "Dance for her, dance for yourself, and remember, perfection isn't the goal, expression is." When the house lights dimmed and the curtains parted, the collective intake of breath from the audience greeted the transformation of the once silent child into a performer, commanding the stage with unexpected presence. Cecilia began with tentative movements that visibly strengthened as the music embraced her. The adapted story portrayed the white swan as a being caught between worlds, unable to speak in human form yet conveying profound emotion through movement, her isolation gradually overcome through connection with others who learned to understand her silent language. Mrs. Bianchi dabbed discreetly at tears as Cecilia executed a series of perfect bourrées across the stage, her technique flawless, but secondary to the emotional narrative emerging through her interpretation. The housekeeper who had witnessed 3 years of frozen grief now observed its thawing through artistic expression. During the Black Swan variation, Cecilia portrayed inner struggle with remarkable sophistication, her movements alternating between sharp precision and fluid vulnerability, her facial expression shifting subtly to convey conflict between withdrawal and connection, safety and risk, past and future. The unexpected turning point came during the third act, when the music shifted to a piece not listed in the program, the distinctive melody from Cecilia's cherished music box, filling the theater with haunting familiarity. Recognition dawned on Giuseppe's face as he identified Catherine's favorite composition. In response to the music, Cecilia's dancing transcended technique to become pure emotional narrative, her movements incorporating elements from her mother's signature style while introducing variations that were uniquely her own. The performance became simultaneously tribute and declaration of individual identity. The final scene approached with Giuseppe waiting in the wings, his face reflecting internal conflict between lifetime habits of emotional restraint and the vulnerable role his daughter had requested he play. Farron's steady nod from stage left provided reassurance as he stepped into the spotlight. Cecilia danced toward her father with arms extended in the ballet's adapted conclusion, her movements asking a question that transcended words. The audience held its breath as Giuseppe hesitated, the powerful man momentarily uncertain before his daughter's silent request for connection. With surprising grace, Giuseppe accepted Cecilia's outstretched hands, following her lead in the simple partnering sequence they had practiced in secret. His natural dignity compensated for technical limitations as they moved together in the dance of reconciliation that concluded the transformed narrative. The performance reached its emotional peak when Cecilia completed her final turn and, for the first time in 3 years, her voice emerged, small but distinct in the perfect acoustics of the theater. "Daddy, watch me." The 2 simple words carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken conversations. Giuseppe's composure shattered at the sound of his daughter's voice, his controlled facade yielding to raw emotion as he knelt to her level on the stage. Around them, the invited staff and security team witnessed a more profound transformation than any ballet could choreograph, healing bridging the chasm grief had carved between father and child. As the final notes faded, Cecilia stepped forward to address the stunned audience, her voice gaining strength with each carefully formed word. "Thank you for seeing me dance. My mother always said that some stories can only be told through movement, but now I'm ready to use words again too." The success of Cecilia's performance created ripples extending beyond the Salvati estate, staff speaking of the miracle to relatives, the ballet instructor mentioning the extraordinary talent to professional colleagues, whispers spreading through Chicago's interconnected social circles about the crime lord's daughter emerging from silence. Dario Falcone received the intelligence report in his downtown penthouse, surveillance photos showing increased activity at the Salvati estate, including regular visits from the principal dancer of the Chicago Ballet. "So the child is Giuseppe's weakness," he mused, setting plans in motion that would exploit this newly confirmed vulnerability. Security breaches began as subtle tests, a delivery truck arriving without proper credentials, a drone briefly flying over the estate grounds before being disabled by Farron's team, unusual network traffic probing the mansion's digital defenses. Each incident heightened Giuseppe's protective instincts while revealing potential weaknesses in their security protocols. The threatening letter arrived on expensive stationery, its message composed from newspaper clippings. "Children who dance follow their mothers." No signature accompanied the implied threat, but the reference to Catherine's death left no doubt about its source and intent. Giuseppe's immediate response transformed the estate into a fortress. Additional guards posted at all entrances, Cecilia's outdoor activities suspended indefinitely, and Penelope instructed to remain on the grounds at all times. The restored theater stood empty, ballet lessons conducted behind blackout curtains in interior rooms. "We could disappear," Giuseppe considered during late-night strategy sessions with Farron, satellite images of potential safe houses spread across his desk. "Start fresh somewhere beyond their reach. Italy, perhaps, or further east, where my connections could ensure anonymity." Penelope found Cecilia sitting motionless before her bedroom window, fingers pressed against glass as she watched guards patrol the gardens where she was no longer permitted to walk. "They want to lock me away again," she whispered, her recently recovered voice fragile with fear that progress would be reversed. "Your father is afraid of losing you," Penelope explained, joining her at the window. "Fear sometimes makes us build walls when what we really need are bridges. He hasn't learned yet that protection without freedom becomes another kind of cage." The unexpected solution emerged from Cecilia herself, a carefully drawn diagram presented to Giuseppe and Ferrone during their security meeting, depicting the private theater transformed into a community dance school, with proceeds benefiting children affected by violence. "If we hide, they win," Cecilia explained with the direct logic children often bring to complex situations. "But if we build something good from something bad, we change the story. Mom always said transformation is more powerful than retreat." Giuseppe recognized his wife's philosophy in his daughter's words, her proposal reflecting Catherine's unfulfilled dream of creating arts education for children, regardless of background or circumstance. The plan challenged his instinct for retaliation, while offering an alternative path forward that honored both his wife's memory and his daughter's emerging voice. A public charity under Salvati protection would be untouchable, Farron acknowledged, strategic considerations aligning with personal ones. No family would dare move against a project benefiting innocent children. The backlash would unite every territory against them. The Catherine Williams Salvati Foundation took shape with remarkable speed. Legal frameworks established, board members selected from respected neutral parties, and the private theater expanded with additional studios to accommodate community classes alongside professional training programs. Falcone's anticipated attack never materialized as news of the foundation spread through Chicago's criminal hierarchy. The proposed violence against a child's dance school recognized as a line no one could cross without sacrificing essential honor codes that maintain their fragile ecosystem. Instead, an unexpected gesture arrived. A vintage music box delivered to the Salvati mansion with the Falcone family crest, and a brief note: "Children should dance, not suffer for their father's conflicts." A truce offering in recognition of shared values regarding family protection. The Foundation's inaugural ceremony featured prominent families from across Chicago's diverse power structures, political, business, and underworld representatives united in supporting arts education for children affected by violence, their presence simultaneously endorsement and protection for the Salvati initiative. 1 year after the Foundation's establishment, the Catherine Williams Salvati Dance Academy celebrated its anniversary with a special performance featuring students from across Chicago's diverse neighborhoods. The renovated theater had expanded to include 3 additional studios, scholarship programs, and specialized classes for children with disabilities or trauma backgrounds. Penelope now served as the Academy's educational director, her expertise in adaptive teaching methods transforming traditional ballet instruction to accommodate diverse learning styles. Her office walls displayed photographs of students' progress, physical achievements alongside the emotional milestones that had become equally valued measures of success. Cecilia had grown both physically and emotionally, her blonde curls now styled in a practical braid, as she assisted with the youngest students' classes 3 afternoons weekly. Her autism remained part of her identity, but no longer defined her interactions. Selective mutism replaced by thoughtful communication. Isolation transformed into carefully managed social engagement. The anniversary performance program included a special duet choreographed by Cecilia herself, telling the story of a maid who noticed a silent child when others looked away. The narrative's emotional authenticity connected with the audience on a level technical perfection alone could never achieve. Giuseppe watched from the wings, his presence at the Academy now commonplace rather than extraordinary. His understanding of artistic expression deepened through witnessing its healing effects firsthand. The business of power continued under his direction, but increasingly legitimate ventures received his primary attention. The Foundation's success had created unexpected ripple effects throughout Chicago's criminal hierarchy, rival families establishing their own community initiatives, violence decreasing in neighborhoods surrounding arts programs, and children previously destined for street recruitment finding alternative pathways through creative expression. Farron had transformed security approaches at the Academy, training staff in protective protocols that preserved welcoming atmosphere while ensuring student safety. His team now included former gang members, seeking redemption through legitimate employment, their street knowledge enhancing rather than compromising security operations. The Bronzetti family's youngest daughter had enrolled in the Academy's summer program, her presence initially causing tension, until she and Cecilia discovered shared passion for contemporary choreography. Their unlikely friendship became symbolic of the Foundation's deeper purpose, healing generational conflicts through the next generation's connections. Mrs. Bianchi had retired from household management to become the Academy's administrative director, her organizational skills creating systems that allowed creative chaos to flourish within necessary boundaries. Her office became a sanctuary for students needing quiet moments between classes, her grandmother's wisdom offering comfort during difficult transitions. "We're creating something my mother would recognize but never could have imagined," Cecilia told a documentary crew filming the Academy's community impact. At 14, her articulation had developed alongside her dancing, though she still sometimes communicated complex emotions more clearly through movement than words. The Catherine Williams Salvati Scholarship now supported 20 full-time students annually, covering not only tuition, but transportation, proper nutrition, and psychological support for children from backgrounds marked by violence or neglect. Recipients were selected based on passion rather than technical ability, creating opportunities previously unimaginable for many Chicago families. Giuseppe's relationship with Penelope had evolved from employer-employee to partners in both the Foundation and life, their formal wedding held in the Academy's theater with Cecilia as maid of honor. Their shared commitment to creating safe spaces for creative expression unified their personal and professional lives. The annual Foundation Gala brought together Chicago's most powerful figures, political leaders, business magnates, and representatives from all major families now united in supporting arts education. What had begun as protection for one child had expanded to shield hundreds, the collective investment creating neutral ground previously unimaginable. Dario Falcone arrived at the gala with his grandson, a serious boy whose interest in technical theater had blossomed through the Academy's backstage program. "Our children will build bridges we never could," he acknowledged to Giuseppe during their now customary annual conversation, business rivalries contained within boundaries that excluded the next generation. When the lights dimmed for the evening's showcase performance, Cecilia took center stage in a modern adaptation of Swan Lake that incorporated elements from her first performance while demonstrating her technical growth. The narrative had evolved, no longer about transformation from swan to human, but celebrating the unique perspective of existing between worlds. As the final curtain fell and applause filled the theater, Penelope watched Giuseppe embrace his daughter with uninhibited pride, the emotional walls that once separated them long dismantled. The journey from isolated grief to connected purpose had transformed not only their family, but an entire community's understanding of healing through artistic expression. If this story touched your heart, showed you how one person noticing what others ignore can change lives forever, or reminded you of the power of connection beyond words, please support our channel. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from around the world, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video to help us continue bringing stories that illuminate the human spirit in its most beautiful, resilient forms.